Welcome to the Patryk Real Estate Show, where we explore the fascinating world of real estate investing with your host, Patryk Switek. Patryk is a dynamic young entrepreneur and an accomplished real estate investor who's passionate about helping others achieve financial freedom. Each week, we sit down with some of the most inspiring individuals in the real estate industry and delve into their personal journeys, lessons learned, and secrets to their success. Let's dive into this week's episode.
Federico, welcome to the Patryk Real Estate Show, man. Short for Fede. I just realized that everyone was calling you Fede, but I was calling you Federico, so I'm going to just start calling you Fede. Excited to have you on, man. Fede is somebody in this industry that I had the great pleasure of talking to multiple times, and recently we had some very intellectual, high-level conversations, high-level strategy conversations when it comes to pricing and listing optimization, just overall management. Fede is an incredible manager, and he talks about it a lot. And he's got 45 units currently. And I'm just really excited to dive into some really, this is going to be a very technical, it's a very technical conversation. But I definitely want the audience to know a little bit more about you and your background before we even jump into all of that.
Yeah, Patrick, thank you so much for having me here. I've been in the travel industry all my life. I'm 33 since I'm probably 18. I'm working somehow with the hospitality travel industry, and I spent 10 years in the airline industry back in Argentina, where I'm from. But I was working with the call centers for the largest airline in the world, doing everything related to customer service and the tariff department, which is pretty closely to the revenue management, which is something that I love and we really need in the short-term rental industry. So after 10 years, I was playing around with my own extra room in my condo back in Argentina to put it on Airbnb in 2017. But during COVID, my job changed the dynamics. I was traveling a lot. I was staying a lot during COVID. I had to stay at home doing a lot of Zoom calls. I had a lot of free time. I started helping here, like people from Argentina who have properties in the US, doing like even a BA maybe job. And from there, I started my first management company, grew that to 75 properties. And then she parted ways with my partner in good terms. She just wanted to take a different direction with the properties that I had. I started again in August last year and grew a company to 45 properties now. And yeah, I'm just excited to chat about the different strategies and techniques to make those properties perform great.
Yeah. Where are you based out of right now?
I'm in Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth, Texas. Got it. Cool. Yeah, let's chop it up, man. So now, what do you do now? You have the 45 properties. You're also an educator in the space. What are you doing now to help educate others on these topics?
So I'm sharing in my account, the CR Guide. I have a mentorship program called Compass to Hosting, which is focused for people who want to learn about managing, especially remote management, which is kind of my expertise, because I started managing from Argentina, 5,000 miles away from my properties, which requires some processes in place and some SOPs and systems that you need to rely on to make sure that things run smoothly when you cannot just jump in a car and drive to the property. So that's a little on what we focus, but it's very holistic saying, because you will agree with me, when you're managing properties, you need to wear so many hats, from customer experience to understanding property maintenance to revenue management to safety. There are so many things that you need to know, and that's what I want to give people. I see a lot of people jumping into the short-term rental space and they get a lot of education on the first part of things, which is how to underwrite a property, find a good property, set it up, design it. But then there's the other half of, okay, how do I make this now make money?
Yeah. And what's crazy is I feel like that's the most important part. That's where I focus my energy as well is, yes, you can acquire these units or you can acquire a lot of this stuff, but the management piece is so critical. Yeah. And I see managers, I take over properties for managers that make, for instance, one client made $12,000 in 6 months, and we made that for him in 1 month. Just through better pricing, better listing optimization, better everything, because the other manager was just not as good. And so seeing that and realizing that not all managers are the same, it's not, especially in this day and age, hiring an incredible manager or being an incredible manager and spending the time to learn these things that we're going to talk about in this podcast is going to be instrumental to your business beyond anything you can imagine. And so I believe in that so heartily. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. And if I can add on that, I think We're in a business that it has a low barrier to entry in the sense that anyone can become a short-term rental
Hmm.
host, anyone can become a short-term rental manager. But that doesn't mean that you're going to be great at it, right? Anyone can call themselves that and just get one client and try to do it. But actually getting the education, and we all have to start somewhere, that's true. But that's the difference when you go with someone that is willing to do it at a lower rate because they're just getting started, and someone who already made all the mistakes and learned on the way, but already had experience to provide the best.
100%. So let's get into it, man. I want to talk a little bit of game. So right off the
Yeah.
bat, if some people that have a short-term rental, right? What are some of the things that you see? Let's just dissect a whole short-term rental. Let's say from scratch, let's say somebody says, I'm starting this short-term rental. I want this to be a successful short-term rental. I bought it, I furnished it, I built an incredible property with all the incredible amenities, and they're just like, I want you to take it from here and tell me what to do, or let's walk through like your process of you taking that property on, setting it up and everything.
Yeah. So once someone reach out to onboard a property, what I do is I send them an onboarding form that has a lot of questions that they need to fill, right? I try to make it easy, but it's a form that I custom design to understand both the owner, the property, and their goals. So we do have an initial call. After that, they have that form. And once we do that, we start setting up the systems. Different aspects here, but the first thing that we want to focus in is how do we position this property to perform the best that it can. And when you have a new property, you need to penetrate the market. That's a reality, right? You got to do a pricing strategy called market penetration. This is the way that I do it. I need to think, okay, there's a lot of listings, maybe it depends on market, right? But there's a lot of listings that are already positioned in the market. And Airbnb is always looking for consistency. This is key because for Airbnb, a listing that's been performing well, but it's been around for 3-4 years, is a safer choice than someone new who doesn't know what they're doing. Because Airbnb is all about PR. And I may go, I also have the ADHD brain. I was into the current episode, but I want you to think about this. Airbnb has become a brand that represents every host. When you book an Airbnb, you're booking an Airbnb, different to when you book a hotel through booking.com. If you book a hotel through booking.com and you have a bad experience, you may go through booking.com, but you may go directly to the hotel to make your complaint. When you have a bad experience on an Airbnb, Airbnb takes the blame and Airbnb takes the PR hit. So Airbnb has to minimize the risk. That's the way that I see it. So every change and anything that they do in the platform, any new terms of service updates that they do is to create consistency, avoid cancellations, avoid people checking into properties that are trash, avoid all of those type of things that ruin someone's stay. With that thinking, again, when you're listing a new property, Airbnb is going to put you on a trial period to see, okay, are you going to offer a consistent experience, or are you just going to cancel the first day because you didn't set up the pricing correctly as soon as you listed the property? Again, how do we do then penetrate the market? If we have a great property, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to close the calendar 2 months out. I'm just going to open 1 to 2 months. And I'm going to offer the 20% discount Airbnb gives you to offer. That's going to give you a bump on the SEO. And I'm going to try to rank as many reviews as I can, as quickly as I can. And I want people to use that 20% discount as soon as I can. I don't want people to use the 20% discount during the holidays. We're in February now. I don't want them to use that in, I don't know, the summer. I don't want them to
December.
use it on the holidays. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I want them to use it now and leave a great review. So I may compromise a little bit of the initial revenue to have that ramp up period, because once I do that and I can prove, hey, listen, I'm as good as the other people who've been doing this for a while, then I can start competing and they're going to show me more in the first page of results.
Do you think
So
these,
that's the way
so this is, oh, sorry. I thought you were finished. So this is your launch strategy, right? Your launch strategy is to
Mhm.
drive as many reviews as possible. I'll add to that. I do the same thing. I think launch is one of the most underrated, overlooked parts of the property, and that you block off the calendar is really smart. What I do, another strategy is really, I put at the base rate I think it should be fully optimized, because I know what that base rate is more or less. And then I'll discount the first month to month and a half. So that's usually what
Yeah.
I'll do. And then on top of that discount, they'll get the 20% if they hit that. But yeah, that's the way I run it. I do like a 25% discount, and people book up like flies. It goes.
Yeah.
Because once you understand the pricing and dropping with the lead time, you understand, okay, you're gonna get really low booking. However, what this happens, what happens is also really interesting, which I think you alluded to, is lower pricing means lower expectations. So when somebody's coming in, they have low expectations. They're saying, okay, I'm going to get $100 a night place, and they get a $400 a night place. They're going to be extraordinarily happy. Good review, happy guest. They might overlook some of the things that happen when you launch a property that might not go the way you want it. So
Exactly.
I love that. I love that strategy.
Yeah, and time is super important as well. And I love what you're mentioning about you open the entire calendar. The way that I do it this way is because I operate in multiple markets, and sometimes I need to have a learning curve to understand the market. I know you know your market super well.
Mm-hmm.
You're the number one in your market. I'm in so many markets that
That makes sense.
I just want to have a little bit of time to understand, okay, what is the booking window? Is there anything that we're missing? Did we find out about all the reasons why people are traveling? I think that's the other part. A lot of people don't realize how much you learn from the first days to understand why people are coming to a place. And I'm going to give you an example. I used to manage short-term rentals. These were timeshare arbitrages. That's how I got
Mm-hmm.
started on the Airbnb accounts as a BA. Basically, it was through the Walmart network. They have a ton of resorts, and basically, if you have a timeshare with them, you can list their inventory anywhere. And there are a few locations like near Napa Valley that is like super. You will think super vacation destination for people coming for bachelor parties and stuff like that. But because there's not a lot of housing, we'll get a lot of bookings for people going for business and construction in a
Right.
resort that is mostly for people going on wineries and stuff like that. So once you launch the property, again, especially if it's a new market, you may realize that people are coming to visit a particular business, a particular hospital that you were not even considering. And that also may change your pricing strategy because maybe your midweeks, you thought it would be one thing, there's another thing. Your booking window may change. So there's a lot of learning in those first few days.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And in the first few days, that's how you build the algorithm. That's how you tell Airbnb or whatever place you listed at that you are valuable because they don't know, right? To them, it's a risk, but they also need to figure out what your desirability score is. I call it desirability score. So internal score that they have that deciphers, is this something that's valuable? Are they going to provide a great experience? Are they going to be a good stay? So I like that approach of just being on their good side right off the bat.
Yeah.
That is really smart also because I have not entered new markets in a while. So I'm definitely going to be using that 2-month rule. That's really interesting because if you mess up for 2 months versus you mess up 7 months down the line, you're
Exactly.
like, oh, dang. So,
Yeah, and we made those mistakes. Don't get me wrong. I always like to remind this to people. Sometimes people see us talking about this as experts. I think we can call ourselves at this point. But we started somewhere. We made mistakes, and we learned the hard way. So sometimes, and I even explain this to some clients. What you're paying for management is not only the potential earning that you're gonna get when I manage better than you, but it's also the fact that you're gonna skip a lot of costly mistakes when you
yeah.
misprice something, when you let someone not suitable to book your place on a third party and stuff like that. You're also avoiding those type of ugly situations.
Yep. And navigating all of the different claims, having enough data or enough photos to make a claim correctly, like all that stuff. But we can go on and on
Yeah.
about that aspect. So launching this property is important. So we're doing this launch, we're putting it together. Now, from a listing perspective, right? I think listings and pricing go hand in a lot of ways. I don't know how you do it, but how would you structure the listing to optimize it for when you get into the pricing aspect of things?
Another great point. That's another thing I love to talk about, thinking the listing process. If you think about Airbnb as a business, I always like to think of what's going on the Airbnb headquarters brains, right? They make the onboarding process as simple as they can because if they make it very complicated, the drop-off rate will be gigantic, right? If you have the mom and pops trying to list a property and it's a lot of details, they're gonna be like, "This is not worth my time. This is too complicated. I'm not gonna do it." When you list your property, Airbnb is gonna ask you for around, I think it's 19 questions about your property, 19 different things that you can add about your property. But actually, once you are live, you can edit up to 200 or more, the amenities and everything. Once you list your property, the first thing you need to do is go through every single checkbox, text box, anything that you can find that you can fill. You need to add information in there, right? And you need to understand how Airbnb likes that information to be displayed. Airbnb does not like to have emojis. They like to have a clean title with all the words capitalized. They don't like special characters. But we go and edit all of that, and then we really put out our work into the photos. What I like to tell my clients is you don't want people to do the mental exercise to think how your property will look like in a specific setting, like at sunset. You want to show them that. You want to show how the fire pit looks during the sunset. You want to show them how the pool is going to look like, or the hot tub at the peak moment. You don't want them to again do that mental exercise. I know you do some photos with people, right? Like lifestyle photos. I think that's amazing. That's what you want to do because again, you want people to do that effort on thinking this is how my experience maybe go. You want to show them, hey, this is how amazing it's gonna be. So photos for me and choosing the right first 5 photos
Photos are huge.
is
Yeah.
key. At the end of the day, you need to think about the booking process, right? You're looking for a destination and you're gonna
Mhm.
have so many options. People are gonna put maybe less than a second of attention to your listing. If the first photo doesn't capture their attention, they're not gonna look at the rest of the photos. So you really need to do something to catch that attention, and the photos are key.
Yeah. So let's talk about lifestyle photos. Why would you recommend lifestyle photos?
I think they're great because again, it just helps people see themselves into the space and not having to imagine themselves how the place will look like if there will be like again doing that mental effort or how would it look like when we're there enjoying the place. And it doesn't necessarily need to involve people, but it needs to involve certain again the fire pit on, the lights on, those type of things. What I do recommend people is don't add things you're not gonna be offering the property. If you put a bottle of wine in one of the photos, most likely people are gonna arrive waiting and expecting a bottle of wine. Just put what they're gonna find. Don't try to what is the word? Or promise and under deliver, but just
Yep.
make it as good as you can when it comes to them imagining in that scenario.
Absolutely. So with photos, why? So let's talk about why photos are so important in Airbnb versus a place like Zillow if you're trying to go and rent a place. Do you know the difference between the two?
I know that Airbnb does rank the photos. I'm guessing that's where you're going. That
Yeah,
they put
yeah, they
a
do.
ranking on the photos. Yeah.
But
So
also,
Airbnb is gonna. Uh,
oh, but also I was gonna say also the fact that with Airbnb you're making the purchasing decision at your computer versus with Zillow you're making the purchasing decision or the home decision to buy the home when you're at the home. You get to see the home. You don't get to see the home on Airbnb. So that's why photos are so
totally.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why like my ideas. You don't need to make them have to imagine themselves how the property is gonna look like in that setting. It's like try to put it as close as it's gonna be when they're gonna be
Yeah.
there during the evening or something like that. But also the SEO is super important because Airbnb is gonna rank your photos based on the quality. So
Hmm.
it's one of the most important things. People are exactly buying with their eyes on the computer.
So Airbnb SEO has an idea of the quality of the photos by how you upload
Yeah.
them. That's
Yeah, not
pretty
even
cool.
that. They don't have machine learning. This is something I heard not long ago from Sean Rakitic, which he's a goat when it comes to all of this stuff, and I've been following him for so long. But he was explaining how if you look for a certain time of the year, you're gonna see what Airbnb is showing. When you go to a market and they're suggesting listings, like even when you open your computer and you're in one area and it's gonna show you properties around your area, it's gonna show you like certain type of photos and it's gonna choose depending on where you are more water, more blue, more winter, more snow. So you want to also match that depending on the season, right? So you also need to adjust that if you but not when you are, but when are people booking for. You need to think about your booking window. Right now people are booking for summer, but you don't want to have photos right now that are winter or that are spring. You want to put photos that are summer because that's what people are looking for. You want to have the photos for the winter before winter when people are looking for winter stays. So that's
Wow.
also a key part on bookings.
So let's talk about that. So if you have a market like Michigan, Michigan is a very summer heavy market and it's
Yeah.
got the winter is harder to book out. So when is the season for Michigan? And then when do you switch to photos for Michigan? And should you have multiple
So
sets of photos?
yeah. So we've been doing photos. We've been done fall photos because of the leaves and the colors. So we have three seasons. Spring can be replaced with summer, but the seasonality, the strongest seasonality is mid-May till mid-September.
Mhm.
So honestly, we've been doing great on the winter, but of course the ADR just dropped significantly. So even if you stay occupied, it's gonna be a different price point. But that's your summer. So we changed the photos for Michigan around late December. we started putting the photos for the summer because we're already getting bookings for July, August.
Perfect. Awesome. So listing optimization, let's say we did our listing, we did our amenities. That's huge, right? Those are the filter things that gets you
Yeah.
shown even on the platform to begin with. And now we're at a point where I think the listing's set up pretty well. Is there anything else you would add to this listing, or do you think that's where you would launch it?
So you need to look at your fees. You need to look at your house rules. So
Yeah.
those are different things that you need to look into. So your house rules, you want to make sure that you describe what's going to happen if someone breaks your house rules, especially on
Mm-hmm.
fees. But also it's super important because a lot of people don't realize that you can use that to fight a bad review. If someone leaves a bad review, but they did something that is against your house rules, you can claim that as a retaliation.
Yep.
So that's why it's important that you describe exactly what is allowed and not allowed, even if you don't have to enforce it every single time. So making sure you have your rules. I suggest if you can do it pet friendly as much as you can. Of course, not all properties can, but it's going to give you a larger audience, especially if you target to families or couples. For couples nowadays, dogs, pets are the new children. At least that's how it's at home. And then deciding your cleaning fee and your different fees you have in your property. And a lot of people don't realize that passing through the cleaning fee directly to your guests may not be the best idea all of the time. Now, Airbnb is like been hiding the cleaning fee lately. I noticed that they're not showing it as they used to, but you need to understand that it's just part of your pricing. And if your cleaning fee is higher than the average price of one night, Airbnb is not going to look like, it's not going to like that. But even more, something that a lot of people don't talk about is VRBO optimization. And the cleaning fee is one of the number one factors on VRBO optimization. VRBO, whenever you list a new property on VRBO, they're going to call you. They're going to have like a representative calling you, say, hey, I noticed that you listed your property. I want to give you a few advice here. And the number one thing I always hear is you can drop your cleaning fee a little bit, and it's going to get you more bookings. And I've done it multiple times. Just drop the cleaning fee when VRBO is slow, and we'll start getting bookings like crazy.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that's and calling in VRBO for some reason, I feel like every time you call VRBO, they boost your ranking of your listings.
Really?
It's really interesting. I don't know, like
Mm.
I've maybe it's like placebo, but every time I call
Yeah.
them, I didn't get anything for a long time, and all of a sudden I'm getting a few. I'm like, huh, interesting. Because I called them and asked them like, hey, what do you think I should do to get more bookings? I get a lot at Airbnb. I don't get that much here. And I don't know
Interesting.
if they switch a switch or if it worked. I don't know. It's weird. But cool. So you got that. So we have the whole dichotomy. Now let's talk about the holy grail, right? Pricing. How important is pricing for a short-term rental? What is the difference that you get for properties that are well priced versus ones that aren't? Do you know the impact of pricing?
It's huge. It's day and night. Pricing is the number one thing because I always like to talk about the uniqueness of our industry. We're dealing with a highly perishable product or service, if you want to call it,
Hmm.
that is also a fixed inventory. So let's think about this. Any night that you cannot sell today, you cannot sell it tomorrow, right? So
Yes.
if tonight goes vacant, that's gone forever. Any t-shirt that you didn't sell today, you can sell it tomorrow. Now, the fixed inventory means when a lot of people want to stay at your property, you only have one property. And when no one wants to stay at your property because it's low season, you still have that one property, right?
Hmm.
You're going to expand and contract that inventory for that particular property. That makes you have to have a strategy where you sell to the right person at the right time at the right price. If you miss that, then you miss your opportunity to make the most profit that you can with the property. And that's the whole concept and whole base of revenue management. And again, coming from the airline industry, I come from the airline who created revenue management or yield management back in the 70s, I think. And that was what they will put us in our brains. So any plane that takes off and there's an empty seat cannot be sold again. And that's the same thing that I bring to the short-term rental space, the same mentality. So how do we make the most out of every single night? And there's a lot of people that say, I don't look for 100% occupancy, I just look for the most revenue. But the most revenue is going to be with 100% occupancy, which we will not be able to get at all times. But any night that went vacant, it was an opportunity to make even more revenue. That doesn't mean that we're aiming for 100% occupancy, because I was talking to one of my occupants, my revenue management guys in my team. We're talking about that today. It's like, occupancy, I can get you 100% occupancy on any property. If I sell it for $50 a night, I can get you 100%. But it's how we make the most out of that calendar where farthest out, we're going to have more chances to get our higher rate. And as we get closer to the date, we still want to maximize every single opportunity, every single opening in that calendar. And I think that's the
So
mentality you need to
that
approach for revenue management.
Absolutely. So this is actually where I think me and you agree. So I'm curious, do you think that so you shoot for 80% occupancy, or is there an occupancy level you shoot for? Or do you shoot for as much money as possible, but if you can't, then as occupant as possible? Like you never let a day go by.
No. Unless it's a property that we don't want to have one night stays because it's a large house, like you could bring bad guests. We try to hit 100% all the time. And we need to be realistic,
Okay.
right? We're going to look at the market because I think that's the other problem that a lot of people experience when they get started. They see themselves as an isolated property and they forget about all the players around themselves, right? I was actually talking with someone yesterday from a mentorship, and she was a little bit worried about her occupancy. And I say, hey, listen, let's pull up your price labs, because she was like, I have midterm rental booking, they're checking out on April, I just got a few bookings. I was like, okay, I understand how your market works a little bit. Let's look at your numbers. So when we pulled up her occupancy for the next 90 days, she was at 60% and the market was at 20. So it's, listen, not only you don't have to worry about it because you're doing 3 times better than the market, but also there may be some room for you to raise your prices. Because at the end of the day, how you're occupied compared to the market is also a thermometer for you to understand if you have room to raise your prices. Or at the same time, if you are below market occupancy, maybe you need to start dropping your prices.
Wow. So you're a believer. Those people that say that you should always shoot for 80% occupancy. If you're 100% occupant, that means you're underpriced. Is that true or no?
No, it all depends on, again, there's so many factors. Is how and when do you sell it? If you look at it only on occupancy side, if it's only an occupancy conversation, you're missing the most important point, which is revenue. At the end of the day, I want to see how much revenue I'm making. And I have some properties that during the slow season, they're only going to make 40% occupancy, but they're making 3 times more money than any property around them. And I'm happy with that. That's what I'm shooting for at the end of the day. I just want to see the money in my client's pocket. I don't want to see, hey, yeah, we had a full calendar, which is only $50 a night. But again, occupancy is a good thermometer to understand how your price compared to your market. If you get to 100% occupancy, but you get to that by at the end of the month, last minute selling those last few gaps, I don't see anything wrong with that. If I made the most out of every single weekend and every single day that was the most desired day, and I was able to get the less desirable days also booked.
Absolutely. So the idea in pricing high level is getting the most amount of money that it can warrant without letting it go and not getting anything.
Yeah.
That's the strategy you deploy. So now, what about those people? Because I deploy the same strategy, but I get clients saying, "Hey, that's a lot of churn on my property." What's your answer to that?
That's a conversation I have with every client based on their goals and understand what they're looking for. Is that
That's going to be
going back to, yeah, but going back to the conversation about being relevant on the algorithm, I explained to them, listen, the more bookings that we get, the better we're going to perform and the most future revenue that means. That's something that people don't think about when we're talking about the 80% occupancy, for example. If I'm able to sell a Tuesday last minute on the slow season, Airbnb is going to look at me, and this happens for real. Airbnb is going to look at me and say, hey, you're good. Because if you're being the pick on a Tuesday where no one is booking, that means that when the good times come, I'm going to show you first because people like you. That's why it's a long-term game. It's not just, yeah, let's try to make the most out of this weekend and that's it. It's compounding. I think that's the word, it's compounding. All those little bookings that you get in the middle, it's compounding because you're going to get another good review. You're going to get higher occupancy, higher revenue, but also higher exposure in the platform. So that's what I explain to my clients. I don't have a lot of pushback on that, but I may say, hey, okay, if you don't want to have one night stays, I understand we may get rid of that and try to maybe work on offering people to extend the stay at a discount or something like that when we have a 1 day gap.
Yeah. So another thing that a lot of times that screws up pricing that I get from clients is setting up really high minimum pricing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what you think about that and how do you combat that? Does that really have an impact on the algorithm? What can you get the higher minimums and still do really well? Or does availability of the calendar matter more? Does availability of the calendar and having lower minimums better, or having high minimums less occupancy but higher rates?
No, it's a good question. This is what I will say about the minimums, because I don't like to have a lot of minimums. I understand, and this is the way that I put it to my clients as well. Is listen, give me a threshold. They say, hey, I don't want to go lower than this. And I'll go lower only if people book for longer. That's the compromise I get. It's like, I'm not gonna set that. I'm not gonna set the rate lower than that as the nightly rate, but I'm gonna offer discounts for length of stay. Meaning, if you stay for 3, 4, 5 nights, I'm gonna give you an extra 10, 15, 20% discount, and that's kind of like the compromise that we get. So I go with the minimums if I can like penetrate the minimum with that length of stay discount, where at the end of the day, the person who's staying still is paying like a large amount for the entire stay. Because I also agree, sometimes you need to outprice the guest, and depending on the market, it does happen that if you have 2 nights at $100 at a large house, you may attract undesirable guests. It happened to me, I know it. So it's also on my best interest to avoid that. Even to put it on an operations standpoint, it's like for me having more churns, having more bookings, it is more work because I'm the one managing more guests, I'm managing more people. But at the end of the day, I want the property to do the best that it can.
Absolutely. I agree. Same thing. It's actually doing your client a service to do that, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
what in general, the property disservice. But so let's talk about nightly minimums. That's an important part of pricing. What is your strategy with nightly minimums? Do you try to strive for the one night stays even with bigger properties, or what's your strategy?
I use a lot of length of stay discounts in the calendar. So I may allow a one night stay in some properties. And again, it really depends on the property because I'm thinking more about houses. I have some condos, I have some apartments that downtown properties in some urban areas. There is like a hotel, one night stays are the best because they pay the most.
Yeah.
So maybe I have some properties where I have 20 turns in a month,
Hmm.
and that's fine. But we're accumulating those properties. Larger houses, the way that I see it is I may allow a one night stay. The most I try to aim for 2 night stays minimum. Um, and the way that I set it up is the farther out is going to be a longer length of stay, and as we get closer, it's going to be a shorter length of stay. That's just opportunity cost. I don't want a one night stay far in the future to compromise the option or the possibility of booking an entire week. But at the same time, when we get in a 2 month range, I start opening for a minimum stay, very short, two nights, but I do offer length of stay discounts, meaning I charge you like a premium or a higher rate if you stay for 1, 2 nights. If you book for 3, 4, 5, 6 nights, 7 nights, I'll give you some step discounts. And especially I do that for the weekdays because if you think about demand, you don't only need to think about demand on a monthly basis, right? When you have your winter and then you have your summer and then the winter, but also within the week, right? You're gonna have your Saturdays here to Tuesday to the Saturday again. So it's peak and valleys. So how do I promote people to stay over a Tuesday? So if I offer a length of stay discount where if your stay touches a Tuesday, I give you 20, 30, 40% discount on that Tuesday only, not on the entire stay, I may promote people to stay over that Tuesday. And that's also
Yeah.
another way that we increase our occupancy.
Do you use Wheelhouse?
No, I know they have some of that. I use Price Labs, but I do a lot of those discounts on Airbnb. And this is the reason why.
Mm.
The reason why I do it on Airbnb is because you have two ways to set price. I can put, let's say your nightly rate is $150, right? Or let's do round numbers because I'm really bad at quick math. Let's say your nightly rate is $100. I
$100.
can push $100 to Airbnb, and you're gonna say $100, right? Let's say I want to discount 20%. I can put $80 on Airbnb on price up, sorry, and show you, hey, my price is $80. Or I can go to Airbnb at a 20% discount and say, hey, we're $100, but you're getting it for 80. Here's your 20% discount, right? So doing those discounts within Airbnb are going to give you the benefit of the SEO bump that Airbnb considers you giving a discount compared to just having a lower rate. So that's the reason why
Yeah,
we do it that way.
absolutely. So that's a really interesting thing. So one strategy that we use, and I'm curious what you think, but far out pricing, we are really a competitive market. So by default, Price Labs does a 20% increase past 60 days, I think it was. So what we do is we go in there
Right.
and we make it, sometimes we'll keep it, but sometimes we'll zero it out to try to get those longer bookings further out. Or what we'll do is do 10% and then do a
Mm-hmm.
10% discount after 60 days on Airbnb. And so it shows up as like, wow, you're getting a discount because you're booking earlier, and people are more prone to book that. Plus, on Airbnb algorithm, it shows up a lot better. So Curious, so you're saying that the Airbnb discounts in the application, apart from price labs, actually impacts the probability that place will book?
I think so. Yeah, I don't have confirmation from Airbnb, but based on my experience, that's the way that I do it. Because
Yeah.
if you think about this, Airbnb has the option to do promotions, right? And when you do a promotion and you offer like a 20% discount, they show you like they have like different um, things that you're gonna get in your listing. You're gonna get like a straight through price. You're gonna get into email marketing. You're gonna get like higher SEO position, listing positioning. So they list the things that you. So if you go to your calendar on Airbnb, highlight a few nights, go to promotions, and you're gonna see what you get. What I understand is you get the same if you do all the type of discounts that get to those thresholds, 10, 15, 20%. So I do a lot of those discounts, especially with pricing rules on the gap days, and people, they just get booked. We get a lot of midweek bookings because
Interesting.
there's another part of on desirability that you need to think about, which is your adjacency. And actually, if you go to Price Labs, I don't know about Wheelhouse, but they have some adjacency rules. But again, I don't want to discount on Price Labs. I want to discount on Airbnb because if I'm going to lower it on somewhere, I wanted to do it on Airbnb. But I put a lot of length of stay discounts on the days before and after a stay. This is what you
Mm.
need to think about.
So what
Let's
is
say I
that
have a check.
setting? What is that setting in Airbnb for the people that are wondering?
So on Airbnb, you have to have the multi-calendar, and for that, you have to have the
Pro
professional
tool.
hosting tools.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to activate that, you go to your account, upper right side. You go to your account, you go to professional hosting tools, and you activate them. And that way, you're gonna have a calendar that looks like a multi-calendar grid. Once you have that, you highlight your calendar, and you're gonna have a right menu where it's gonna let you create rule sets. You go to rule sets, create a new one, and you can add length of stay discounts for 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights.
Yeah.
The way that I use it is I put different type of length of stay discount for different days. I want to promote, again, to encourage people to stay for longer at a lower rate. The adjacency part is because think about the statistics. Let's say for next, where today's Tuesday, right? I don't know what this is going to air, but today's a Tuesday. Let's say next week your Monday is available, my Monday is available.
Right.
But I have a check in the morning. Your Monday is available, but also your Sunday is available, and also your Saturday is available. So basically, your Monday has a few days before that are also available. But my Monday has a check out that morning. Things about the statistics. How many people can I sell it to? I can only sell that Monday to someone who's looking for a stay starting on that Monday. That's my only audience. I can only sell that Monday to a select group of people who are looking to check in on a Monday. Your Monday, you have more options to sell it because you can sell it to people looking for staying on a Monday or starting on a Sunday or maybe a Saturday, staying over the Monday. Yeah. Statistically, my day in the calendar is less desirable. So that's why every time you have a checkout or a check-in the day before after is less desirable. And that's why I try to promote them with this type of length of stay discounts, which is, okay, if you book this adjacent day and you stay for 3 days, I give you a 20% discount. And that's how we get a lot of back-to-back bookings and how we get that 100% occupancy.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so you're optimizing that way. What are some other ways that you try to get closer to that 100% occupancy? What are some other rule sets or settings in Price Labs that help you achieve that, especially closer to the date? Let's say it's not closer to the date.
So farther out, honestly, it'll be adjusting your prices based on what's going on with the coupons in the market. So I keep a close eye on what's going on around me and understand if I'm underbooked or overbooked. Again, we're looking at the highest performance we can get. So if I'm looking at the high season, let's say July for Michigan, and if my properties are at 20% now, and the rest of the market are at 40%, then I may need to start lowering my price. Because something a lot of people don't think about is the booking window, meaning sometimes we shoot for the stars for the high season, but there's a booking window, meaning most of the people looking for those dates are booking 90 days before, 180 days before. And if I miss a window and I'm too close to the date and I have no one to sell it to, I need
It's a
to drop my
discount.
rates lower than what I could have gotten if I sold it at the right price at the right time.
But how do you sell at the right place at the right time? It's all like an art form. It's just feeling the market out,
Yeah.
right? It's like there's
Feeling the market and looking.
Go on.
Also looking at occupancy in the market and looking at your occupancy. Again, I think occupancy is a good thermometer for you to understand how you're performing compared to your competition. So you need to understand, okay, and this is something I love about price apps, because in price apps you can pull if you choose who your competition is, you choose the closest 10 properties to your property, you can pull that calendar into a tab that is called the neighborhood market. I think it's called neighborhood data or the neighborhood market data.
Yeah.
It's one of the tabs that you have in price apps. And you can
Market
pull
data.
those listings. Yeah. And you can pull those listings calendars and you can compare and see their prices and see their occupancy. And you can actually, as you said, you can create in the market dashboard, you can even create a comp set for those 10 properties or 15 properties that are your competition. So if you understand, if they're getting booked and you're not, there's something you need to change, right? Month by month. You need to look, okay, am I falling behind or not? Or am I being overbooked? If I'm being overbooked, that means maybe I'm too cheap right now. If I get an 80% occupancy for July and my competition is at 20, everyone's choosing my property first. Is that because I'm the only and best option out there, or do I have the room to raise the prices? Especially understanding what is the total market occupancy at the end of it, because we're thinking always in terms of into the future. I see that the market for July right now is at 20%, and I know the target. That's the other thing, you need to have a target. Whereas historically, the occupancy for July is usually 90%. So if I know I can get a 90% and I know my competition is at 20%, I should be around 20% for now, right? So it's like looking at those things, understanding how it is sensing the market. Am I following the trend? Am I falling behind? Or am I just too booked? Just looking at that is going to give you a good
Absolutely.
idea on where you are.
So do you manage the orange Cadillac?
Yeah,
So you
and
do.
it's been kicking
The orange
ass.
Cadillac. That's a really good example of one where I'd be interesting to hear your strategy on this. We have a couple of houses like that too, where the comps don't justify what you price it at and how high the pricing is coming in at. So I'm curious for the ones that are really distinguished properties, right? So the story about the orange Cadillac, for the people that don't know what the orange Cadillac is, we had another episode where Sarah Glidewell, she came on and she was talking about how she had this one property that she bought, and the highest comps were like 100,000, and her property performing 180,000. And that's partly well made product, but at the same time, behind the scenes, which we have now, was Fede. You got to hear from the man
Yep.
that actually made the revenue happen, where it hit record highs in that market where nobody else was having $180,000 year on a property, but Fede was able to manage it in a way that allowed it to hit those historically high numbers. Now, granted, if Fede was looking at comps, then that property would have made 100,000. But because Fede is a great manager and he's a great pricing revenue management, and he understands that there's certain things. Now, I'm curious, like how you were able to understand this is better property than what's on market, and how were you able to price without the comps being there?
That is a great, and thank you so much for your
Yeah.
words. Sometimes if you have a unicorn like Orange Guy, like you need to understand you're dealing with something different. So you need to start to understand, okay, what are the booking patterns here? What trends can I follow that are going to help me to understand how can I make the most out of this property? So if you think about it, is okay, 16 people. That's not people booking last minute, right? We're not talking about people
Mm-hmm.
booking last minute because you don't plan for 16 people last minute. Some people do, but so for me to get the highest paying groups are gonna be the 16, the large groups, 16 people plus. They're gonna book far in advance, and you just need to test prices. You need to test ceilings. It's like that. That's how I like to think about it. It's like I test. Okay, does $2,000 a night actually gets booked or doesn't get booked at
Mm-hmm.
all? And is that just being on top of it? I think that's the part that we need to talk about. Is like we are on top of pricing every single day. I have two people helping me and working. I'm actually developing a team that do only pricing every single day. So this is not a property, no property, but this particular one, it's not that you can just set it and forget it. Say, hey, I'm gonna put a base price on price apps and then run and see how it books. I need to go and see how I get a book. Every time I get a booking with Orange Guy, like I feel like, is it too cheap? That's the same feeling I get every time I
Yep.
get a booking. And I go back and I look at the historical data and then it's, man, we charge $300 more ADR than last year, the same dates. Okay, I'm good. Like we're
Yep.
improving and raising those prices. But we have to be looking into that. And you want someone that manages your property that's looking into those details. Are we hitting the goals? Are we doing better than last year? And even the winter, that was the thing that I was told that Orange County was featuring a few podcasts from the Michigan people because they were talking about properties that did really well during the winter, and we kept it booked even though operating expenses were high. Looking at this quarter compared to last quarter last year, we killed it. So super excited about seeing that. And the more data you get year over year, the better you understand the property and how you can improve and maximize the calendar.
So good. This is going to be a really interesting discussion because we have a couple of properties that also defy all aspects of what normal comps in the area do. I know I own one of them too. So I have a one
Yeah.
bedroom that should be getting more like 3,000 a month on average, but is getting 10,000 a month. And I have no
Amazing.
freaking idea why. I have an idea why. It's well designed, it's well executed, but the pricing, I get like 15,000 impressions a month, like crazy amount. And I'm looking at it and I just know that it's like super available, open calendars. We have
Yeah.
one night stays. We allow one night stays further out too. Like our account is so available because we know that we started it in November of last year and we haven't missed one day. Booked. Every single day is
Dude.
booked. We haven't missed one day, and these are at high rates. These are like $300 a night for a one bedroom. That's for a weekday, so it's like crazy to me. But
Is that the
question
one
on
with
that,
the boulder, like with the
yeah, the
stones?
boulders, the deck
Oh,
built into the
I love the
boulders,
property.
yeah, it's that one. Yeah,
That's
so I'm
amazing.
curious with that one. Like we're at a place where we're at page one, we saw it, and we're like, do we raise prices? I don't know because I don't want to kill it. I don't want to kill the algorithm. I'm
Yeah.
really happy with it. It's doing way better than our comps. But at what point, Fede, do you think that you should not raise prices and it's good and it's okay and just let it ride? Or should we raise prices and see if we can do even better than what we think we can do? But then that might kill the algorithm, right? So that's
I'll
just
do
tricky.
really small changes. Like I wouldn't do any drastic change that will swing the algorithm. I will start if you want to raise a little bit, like maybe $10, the base price, and I'll look at the. Yeah, I know you use rank grid, right?
Yeah.
So I'll pay attention both at your positioning and also the click-through rate, at how many people are clicking on your property, because I think that's something that tells you, when it comes to conversion, you have different metrics. You have how many times you show up in the first page of results, how many times people are clicking on your listing, and how many times people are actually booking. So I think that if you have a high number on first page impressions, but your click through is not very high, it's because maybe people
Hmm.
should scare away from your price. They see the listing and they don't even click into the listing because it's out of their budget. If I see that number dropping, we go back and and we keep the price as it was.
Yeah.
But also, we have a say in Spanish in soccer. There's the winning team, you don't touch it. So also, if you're super happy how it's doing, maybe it's good to keep it as it is for a while, not touch anything, and just let it run as it is. If it's just beating everything, it's also a
Well,
good strategy.
yeah, that's where we're at. We also have this two bedroom that does like 150 to 160,000. And it's just like how, and this is a two
Yeah,
bedroom. So we have these like unicorns, but like in Polish. So you said your Spanish saying. In Polish, we have a saying called
yeah.
sometimes when you see shit, you just don't touch it because it's gonna smell up the room. It's better to leave it alone. It's like sometimes you just don't engage with something. It could be negative or positive, but yeah, it's working. So interesting. So cool.
Yeah.
What are some final pricing strategies maybe some final tips that you can share with the audience before we get into the last three questions?
Sure. I think I share like the main things, but definitely building that mindset of why revenue management is important. I like to talk about, if you're familiar with the survivorship bias. I think this is important when you're looking at comps and you're looking at other properties are performing, and when you invest in short-term rentals. For those who are not so familiar with survivorship bias, it comes from World War II, where planes were coming back from fighting. Engineers were looking at the planes, I was thinking, okay, we need to reinforce the places where the planes that came back from the missions got hit by bullets. But then someone, a Hungarian engineer, said, hey, actually, we're looking this backwards, because the ones that got hit in the wings but came back, they can survive those shots. But the ones that are not coming back is because they're being hit where the ones that are coming back are not being hit, right? The engine and those places. And those are the places that we need to reinforce. And what that explains is how sometimes we look things through a filter, and sometimes we're looking at properties or we're looking at comps, so we're not looking at what are the things that didn't pass our first filter to find that data, right? So I want you to think about that. Is look at what are the properties that are performing well, what are the properties that are not performing well that I'm not seeing when it comes to doing the pricing, so I can also consider all of the aspects. And that's a lot of something I try to think a lot when I'm looking at a market or a property and creating my pricing strategy.
Amazing. I love that. So last three questions. Where do you find a book or some podcast or anything else that inspired you to, anything, it could be anything in life that inspired you to do what you do?
Books. So I've been trying to catch up a lot with reading. My friends, Maddie and Skylar, they started their SDR book club. So definitely trying to read about hospitality and business. Podcast, also trying to find what the people on our circle are doing. You, Ryan, Natalie, Carrie, I can mention a lot of them, but what they're doing. But yeah, that's where I'm getting inspiration. It's just our circle and trying to be surrounded by the people who are looking to do great things. That's something that just pumps me up.
Perfect. And same with Sean, Airbnb Automated. You mentioned his YouTube channel helped a lot. So that's a really great resource. Same goes for me. Cool. So second thing, I'm just going to close it off because we're running already late, but I want to ask, what does the future look like for Fede? What are you looking to do? What are you looking to focus on next couple of years or year?
I want to keep growing the management side of things. I want to focus on some markets in the Northeast. So that's something I want to focus, but also keep onboarding properties that I'm just looking to work with people who want to provide a great experience and give me the room to provide hospitality. That's what I'm looking for. So I want just to continue to deliver amazing hospitality.
Incredible. And so for people that want to connect with you, how can they get in contact with you?
So SDR Guide on Instagram, that's the best way to reach out to me and find me, send me a DM, have a chat. About inspiration, also, you were mentioning our books. Can I mention the best book that I got in the last few days?
Oh my God.
Because I got your book, man. I forgot to put it here
awesome,
because
dude.
I have the SDR book club, but I need to put it here. I have it home. It's amazing.
That's awesome, dude. Thank you so much. So I just launched a Wealthy Airbnb Superhouse, and it's on Amazon if anybody wants to buy it. Fede was one of the first people to buy it and give me critique, which matters a lot since Fede is an industry expert. I have a whole chapter on pricing strategy that goes into some of the things, but honestly, this podcast went into even more detail. So I really like this. There's definitely some nuggets there that might be a little bit better for some people to understand. Definitely some stuff that we haven't talked about on here, but yeah, thank you for that shout out. But yeah, thank you for hopping on, man, and appreciate you so much, and let's keep at it.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to the Patryk Real Estate Show. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a follow and leave us a 5-star review. Your support truly means a lot. And connect with Patryk in the show notes below. Until next time.